Well, the guaranteed winning week for Phil Steele Plus is back. Worked out pretty good the first time, at least for you guys. We only put out 4 plays back in week 9. I had a guaranteed winning week, and we didn't have winning week. We went 2-2 on the plays. So as promised, I gave away Press Box for the entire next week for free. Actually, it was week 8 we did the guarantee. So you got my week 9 Press Box for free. And everybody that logged in with the code word that I mentioned, here's what they got. They've got West Virginia, a 2-star play, over Kansas State, an easy winner. They got Boise State over Air Force, an easy winner. They got Nevada over UNLV, an easy winner. They got Texas as the upset play of the week over Oklahoma State. They pulled the upset. They got Mississippi, minus the points over Vanderbilt, an easy winner. And they got Georgia, minus 17 against Kentucky. They only won 14-3. Blew some scoring opportunities late. Almost 6-0, but 5-0 for Press Box. It was a guaranteed winning week here on Phil Steele Plus. I gave away this week for free, and everyone that took advantage of it went 5-1. So I'm having another guaranteed week this week. If for any reason, and I've got 7 plays this week, if for any reason these 7 plays don't have a winning week, you will get my Press Box, a $20 value for the colleges next week, absolutely free. Now, your code word for that is going to be Thanksgiving. Pretty easy. Thanksgiving is your code word. I'm not going to put it on the screen. I ask you to keep it to yourself. I don't want to give away my Press Box. It's a $20 value to everyone. But for you folks that watch the Phil Steele and take the Phil Steele Plus tour, if I don't deliver for you on this week's Phil Steele Plus tour, you get my Press Box, a $20 value, absolutely free. And all you do when you want to get that, you just go to philsteele.com right here. You click on the store, and then you would go to inside the Press Box. Here's the single issue. And you can get this week's as well for $20 if you want. But next week, you would just click here, and then when it comes up to the code word, just type in Thanksgiving, and boom, it's yours free next week. If for any reason we don't have... And by the way, it only comes up on Wednesday of next week. So next week we'll have it up on Wednesday. You would type in, you go to there, hit the single edition, and then type in the code word Thanksgiving. That's Thanksgiving, and you will actually get a $20 value free if I don't deliver for you this week. But hopefully we go 7-0 this week, and I'm not giving away my newsletter for free next week. Let's hope we get to that part. Now, a couple quick notes here when you do go to the store. If you want to get Press Box for the season, college, NFL bundle. If you want to sign up to Phil Steele Plus, it's right here. It's just $49. And that takes you all the way through February, the Super Bowl, guys. The rest of November, all of December, all of January, into February. $49 gets you access to the Phil Steele Plus. Now, the reason I do this tour is so many people have Phil Steele Plus, but I don't think you utilize it to the fullest. So I want to show you every little thing that you can get on Phil Steele Plus. So let's start out. Let's get to a selection, huh? And we'll start off with the Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech game. Well, actually, let me do this. I want to show you a couple things that on the Phil Steele site when you go to it. On the Phil Steele homepage here, let me click back to that. Click Phil Steele. There we go. All right, so you got the Vegas power ratings are up right now. These are the actual Vegas power ratings. They've got my personal ratings in there, but also the ratings from casinos, which are rated actually higher than mine, and this is how they rate the teams. So sometimes a team, give you an example, like a Penn State here, 0-4, everybody says they're a crummy team. Actually, they're a number 27 team in the country. If they played Purdue tomorrow, Penn State would be favored in the game. So these are probably your best set of power ratings that you can get. Also, NFL strength of wins, pain of losses. You get credit for every win of an opponent that you defeat. So Pittsburgh's right now at the top. New Orleans, look at this. Vegas is up there at 29. Buffalo at 28. Kansas City. Tampa Bay's up there at 27. Who's at the bottom? Well, the Jets haven't won a game, so they naturally get zero credit. Houston's beaten 2 teams this year, and those 2 teams are both Jacksonville, which has 1 win, so they only have credit for 2 wins all year. Meanwhile, Cincinnati's got 2 wins, but they got credit for 7 wins because there were 2 teams that they beat have won 7 games. So that's how that works. The other one up there is college football, strength of wins, pain of losses. BYU is right here. These are through 11-14. BYU's at the top with 22, Louisiana 22, Notre Dame 21. Those are the opponents they beat. Here's your pain of losses here, and then here's your actual record. based on, as you see, Louisiana has a loss, but they lost to an undefeated team. Clemson has a loss, but they lost to an undefeated team. So they have credit for 0 losses because you get every loss of an opponent you lose to, and you get every win, every FBS win of an opponent you defeat. So all those things are right here. Just click on FBS info, FCS info. Your FBS info gets you all that stuff. How about your YPG versus opponent average? Western Michigan's at the top because they probably have only played 2 games, but they've been pretty dominating so far, plus 274. BYU, Alabama, Wisconsin's up there, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, Ohio State. And who's at the very bottom? Cal, Utah State, Bowling Green. So I'll go back in and show you how the opponent averages work. We'll talk about that as we go through the tour. Let's get to some selections, though. See what we got going on this week. Now, here's the team pages. You just click on that. I always like to put the home team on the right and the visitor on the left. We're going to break down this matchup between Pitt and Virginia Tech. Take a look at this matchup this week. So Pitt and Virginia Tech is your first matchup. And I'll move this over a little bit so you get to see the whole thing here. There we go. And let's take a look at what we're looking at. Now, first of all, let me show you the individual stats here. And when you look at, we've got the individual stats updated for every team. This is how the teams have done. Shows you at a glance who's done what in each game. You could see running backs starting to emerge as the season goes on. As an example, if we take a look at last year, FBS team pages, it just pops into my head as an example. Go to Iowa State last year. I did show you this one, I think, 2 weeks ago. Let's go to 2019 individual player stats. When I talked to Coach Campbell, he told me Breece Hall was going to really be his top running back. But look, he had 47-0, 35-0, and 2 yards his first 5 games. Then 132, 183, 76, 110, 101, 97, 59, 55. Finished with 897 yards, and it's continued on through this year. So I think it gives you a nice deal like that. And you can use the individual stats when these team pages. Go back to Pitt over here. The team pages actually go down to 2019, 2018, 2017. As you could tell, they're color-coded green and red. So as you could tell, Pitt had a dominant running team here. It jumps out to you at a glance. Good rush defense jumps out to you at a glance. And right here, nice run game here for Pitt. Leading rusher is James Conner. You'd recognize him from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And here they struggled to run the football the year before. And that was even with James Conner. They struggled to run the football a bunch, and you see the red in there. So this takes you all the way back. You've got all this information at your fingertips to 2009, color-coded green and red for each team. You want to do individual player stats. Let's go back to this green year here. See where James Conner had his biggest games. Look at this, 153, 213, 177. 220 against North Carolina, all at your fingertips, every game. We have the information. We update it every week. This is for my personal information, but you have access to it right now with the Phil Steele Plus for the $49. So let's take a look now this week. This individual stats, and we see Kenny Pickett was the starting quarterback in the first 5 games. Then he got injured and missed Miami of Florida, Notre Dame, returned against Florida State. Why is that significant here? Well, Pitt's a 3.5-point home dog. And if we look at their games, they played pretty good. They beat these 3 teams. They lost to NC State by a point. They lost to Boston College by a point. But over here, excellent average game grades. Now, the Miami of Florida and Notre Dame games where he missed, they only had 300 and 162 yards. You look at Joey Yellen, he only hit 44% of his passes. Pickett's hitting 62. He had a 1-3 ratio. Pickett's got an 8-3 ratio. For 3 years, Coach Narduzzi has been telling me Kenny Pickett will be playing in the NFL, and I believe him. I think he will be playing in the NFL next year. Pickett returns. They beat Florida State 41-17. So in games that Pickett started this year, he started 6. They've only lost 2 games, and both by a single point, and they're getting 3.5. So that's one good reason right now to like Pitt in this game. Another thing with the Phil Steele Plus Tour, and by the way, if you go to the start charts like this, you can see Pickett started, then Yellen started these 2, then Pickett. How's their offensive line doing? Well, Cradle missed this game. Drexel missed this game. So the game they lost against Boston College, they had some shuffling on the offensive line. It looks like Cradle was out and Morrissey was out. They were down 2 starters on the offensive line, and they lost to Boston College. That's also the game that Pickett got injured. And so you can see all this right at a glance. So we've got the start charts updated on every team. You just click right here, start charts. Individual player stats are right here. Last 40 years results are right here. And I'll show those to you in a minute. But they take you back to 1976. And this is for every team. You could tell who the coach was. As you could tell, Paul Chryst, Wisconsin's coach, was here for 3 years. Todd Graham, Dave Wanstead, Walt Harris. Johnny Majors was here, for crying out loud. You've got their record in conference play. You could tell they went from the Big East to the ACC in 2013. You've got their complete stats over here. You've got conference stats over here. Individual record here. Bowl games are listed at the bottom. You could easily tell they were in a bowl game 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years and missed out in 2017. All that at a glance at your fingertips. Plus, we not only give you the lines and scores of every game, but starting in 2004, we started giving you halftimes on every single game. And starting in 2003, we started giving you the over-unders on every game. Now, you may not be old enough to remember, but Vegas didn't have over-unders back in 1991. They just started them a little bit here in 98, 99 on TV games. Then they became mainstream right here in 2003. We've got the records. We chart every single line, every single day. So you got your record since 2003 for totals, and you've got halftime since 2004, and you've got the complete stats at your fingertips for any team. So if you want to know, hey, when's the last time this team was a 20-point dog? You can look it up all the way back to 1976. So that's right here under last 40 years results. If you want the last 20 years leaders, they're right here. So you could tell who the leading, you see Kenny Pickett's been here the last 2 years. Ben DiNucci was before him all the way back, all the way through the line. Here's your running backs that they had at Pitt as well. And this is, and if you want draft history, there it is. And this takes you all the way back to the draft started. And I think it started before 37, but Pitt didn't have anybody drafted till 37. That was their first year. Gives you the round, gives you the pick. Look at this, round 24 in 1952, they drafted Bob Beswick. So round 29, Chris Warner. That's all at your fingertips on every single team. And right up here's an analysis of each draft class. So every team page has got all that. Every team page updates you here. You can tell Kenny Pickett. And like I said, so the individual stats show clearly Pitt's a better team with Pickett at quarterback. Now, if you come down here and click right on the team name, it's going to give you the last 23 years matchups. Now, out here, the home team, do you see all this green? That means that the home team has covered. If it's green, that means they covered. If the word win is there, that means they won the game straight up. So the home team's won 3 in a row straight up. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12-3 is the record for the home team against the spread in this series. And as you can tell, Pitt's been doing pretty well in this series. If it's green out here in the line column, that means they covered. So Pitt's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-2 against the spread in the series. Now, last year they lost to Virginia Tech 28-0, but I want to go into that game a little bit closer. It was the final game for Bud Foster, the defensive coordinator for Virginia Tech. So naturally, they were playing with their hair on fire. But look at this. You look at the drives that Virginia Tech had for their 28 points. They had a fumble return for a touchdown. They did have a 90-yard drive here and a 90-yard drive there. And then at the end of the game, I think Pitt went for it and was stopped on downs and drove 25 yards for a touchdown. They only had a 263, 177-yard edge in the game. So Pitt actually wasn't blown out as bad as 28-0, but going against Bud Foster in his final game as defense coordinator, that's a pretty tough task. And I understand the loss for Pitt last year. In fact, I was on Virginia Tech in that game. Another thing I want to point out here when we click on this series history, let's take a look how Pitt's done at home against Virginia Tech. Now, that's pretty easy. You see these hats? Let's go to their home games. Here's a home game, cover, 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 home game, cover. Since 1997, Pitt has played 8 home games against Virginia Tech. They've covered all 8. Pitt is playing pretty well right now with Pickett at QB, and they are a 3.5-point dog. And if you go to the magazine page, page 135, go ahead and flip to that. Pat Narduzzi is 17-9 against the spread as a dog versus the ACC. Now you can see that the last 5 years are in the magazine, naturally, these 5. And let's see how long Narduzzi's been here. He's been here 5 years. So everyone is right there at the bottom of your page. Check out how Narduzzi's done as a dog against the ACC. You'll see 17-9 against the spread. They're actually getting 3.5 points here. I like Pitt, plus 3.5 over Virginia Tech. Lock it in. It's your first of your 7 plays for this week's guaranteed winning week. All right, let's get to another one. I'll take you out west. we're going to take a look at Boise State at Hawaii. This is one where let's go to Boise. They're the visitor on the left, and we're going to go to Hawaii on the right. As we see so far for the season, Hawaii's got 2 blowout losses. San Diego State by 24, Wyoming by 24. They did upset Fresno in the opener and beat New Mexico. Boise's played 3 Mountain West games. They beat Utah State 42-13, covered. Air Force by 19, covered. Colorado State by 31, covered. So they're doing pretty well in that respect. The reason I bring this game up, we're going to take a look at the Boise-Hawaii matchup. Once again, just click on the opponent, and it shows you right off the bat what they've done. Look at this. First of all, this is your win-loss in the game. In the last 23 years matchups here, Boise has won the last 8 games straight up, and they've covered the last 7 games in this series. And they've been 13, minus 13, minus 18, minus 25, minus 28, minus 22, minus 24.5. Covered every single one of them. Their closest win, let's see what it is. It's right here. 2 years ago, they only won by 21. That's the closest it's been in the last 8 years. And the average win has been by 36 points per game. So you got a Boise State team that's 3-0 against the Mountain West. Right here, this clearly says they dominate the series. At Hawaii, they won 52-16. At Hawaii, they won 49-14. At Hawaii, they won 54-9. So they've won their last 3 trips here by huge margins. They've covered. Their closest game is 21. That's why we're putting it out as a play here. It's going to be more of a series history, and the fact that, like I mentioned, Hawaii's 2 losses have both been by 24. Boise's wins have all been by more than the 14 points they're laying here. They've won by 31, 19, and 29 points. So we're going to lock in Boise State minus 14 over Hawaii as your number 2 play on the Phil Steele Plus Tour. Guaranteed winning week. Once again, I'll give you that code word again, Thanksgiving. But don't share it. Just use it for yourself. And if for any reason we don't have a winning week this week, and I'm including the NFL game, you get yourself my press box next week for free. All right, let's take a look at another matchup. We're going to take a look at Michigan traveling to Rutgers. Now, Michigan was very disappointing last week, and I'll admit, I had Michigan over Wisconsin last week. Didn't win it. Had it in press box. Loser. 5 minutes into the game, you're like, well, they're not going to win. They're getting mauled here. 2 interceptions right off the bat by Joe Milton. Wisconsin took advantage with the scores, so that was a big difference in that particular matchup. But let's take a look at the last 5 meetings. How do we do that now? Okay, that's right. You got it. You come down here, you click on the opponent. When you click on the opponent in the last 5 meetings, Michigan has won 49-16, 78-0, 35-14, 42-7, and 52-0. So Michigan is last 5 meetings. The closest game is 21. They've won by 43.8 points per game. Now, last year, Michigan was off an embarrassing game. Let's go back and take a look. They played Wisconsin, 35-14. But 35-14 doesn't even sum up that game. It was 35-0. They scored 2 late scores to make it 35-14. It was an embarrassment. Throw Michigan in the trash can is what you did after they got mauled by Wisconsin. The next week, they were actually minus 27.5 against Rutgers. And I gave it away right here on the Phil Steele Plus Tour. I said, take Michigan minus 27.5. And a lot of people said, oh my God, I can't play Michigan. They're horrible. Well, look at the final score of that game. 52-0 for Michigan. They clubbed Rutgers. As I mentioned, they club Rutgers every year. Is there pressure on Michigan to win? Well, let's see. They're 1-3 for crying out loud. Are they going to give Rutgers their A game this week? Yes. They've got Penn State on the schedule still. They've got Ohio State on the schedule. They need a win. They need a win big. And they're minus 10.5. Rutgers has, let's take a look at Rutgers here. That's Wisconsin. I don't know why I have Wisconsin on the screen. Let me put Rutgers on the screen. All right, so Rutgers lost to Indiana by 16 at home. They're only getting 10.5 from Michigan. Michigan was favored at Indiana. They went into Ohio State and lost by 22. But look at this. It was 35-3 at the half. And last week they played an Illinois team that's been pretty deleted by the COVID and a lot of missing players. And they lost outright, 23-20. Rutgers, I think that Greg Schiano's going to do a great job with them. I think he'll get this team turned around. But they're still not to the level of Michigan. Last year was 52-0. Now they're just laying 10.5, and they need a win bad. The line value is incredible in this game. I'm going to, just like last year on Phil Steele Plus, I'm going to take Michigan. They looked ugly last week. They looked horrible last week. They were down big last week, 28-0 at the half. I'm going to take Michigan minus 10.5 over Rutgers, just like we did last year. But they were minus 27.5 last year. They're only minus 10.5 this year. Take Michigan minus 10.5 over Rutgers as your number 3 play. Lock it in. I had a fourth one. It was Fresno plus 2.5 over San Jose. Finished writing it last night, what I was going to use on it. I had a lot of good things. One thing I liked about that game, and I'm just going to spend a minute on it because if you go to Fresno and San Jose, or if you look at Fresno, by the way, as a home dog the last 5 years, check it out in your magazine. They're 7-0-1 against the spread as a home dog. San Jose is 0-2 the last 5 years. And on a year, Fresno is actually plus 50 yards per game, San Jose plus 58. And Fresno's been favored in 18 of the last 22 meetings. San Jose's 0-2 is the way favorite. I loved it. So I just finished, locked it in, put it on my sheet. Game gets canceled 5 minutes after I locked it in. So let's throw that one out. That's not included. All right, let's go to another game. We got 2 more college games, 1 NFL game. I've given you 3 games already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, no, I got 3 more college games. Let's go to UTSA against Southern Miss. All right. Not sure if you've been following these teams this year. Naturally, I follow every team. Southern Miss has been a hot mess. And let's take a look at UTSA over here on the left. What's been wrong with Southern Miss so far this year? Well, the first thing wrong with Southern Miss is they lost their opener to South Alabama. Then they lost their head coach. Now, head coach jumping ship after one game, might be something trouble in there. Then what happens is after about 5 games, their interim head coach leaves town. So now they have the interim head coach to the interim head coach. A couple weeks ago, they played North Alabama, only beat them by 11. Last week, they lost to Western Kentucky 10-7. They trailed that thing 10-0 at the half, ended up getting a late score, only losing by 3. Another thing for Southern Miss, not only are they down to the interim head coach to the interim head coach, let's take a look at the individual player stats. Jack Abraham's been their starting quarterback for years. When I say years, you look here. Here's Abraham. Here's Abraham last year. 68% completions. Here's Abraham, 73% completions. So Abraham, starting quarterback in 18, 19, 20. Guess what? I talked about coaches jumping ship. Abraham jumped ship. So Trey Lowe took over as the starting quarterback, 12 of 20 for 100 yards, 6 of 14 for 67 yards. Haven't really had a pass game. They don't really have a great run game. Their coach is gone. The defense, giving opponents 45 yards above their season average. Their defense not playing great. And meanwhile, UTSA, one thing I want to point out here, they had played. Now, a lot of teams have been missing games and that and this. UTSA played. They played actually 8 straight games. And then they finally had a game postponed. But they were a tired team here against FAU. This fresh week gave them a week off. And what happens? With the week off, they bounce back and beat UTEP. Not only beat UTEP, but look at this, 600 to 246 yards. They've got a strong run game, which I like, averaging 4.7 yards per carry. Frank Harris doing a good job at starting QB, and the defense has been good. You look at the last 4 games, the defense has given up 296, and this is something a lot of folks don't look at. Check out this last 4 weeks line right here. It tells you how the team is doing currently. In the last 4 weeks, UTSA is allowing 296 yards per game. Earlier in the year, you see this red? Now look what the defense is doing. They're holding opponents to 46 yards below their season average over the last 4 weeks. So they're playing really good defense. And here's another thing to point out. When you click on the individual stats, Sincere McCormick is by far their best running back. Look at this, 197, 150, 133, 165. He didn't play last week. Was he injured? No. His baby got born, so he missed the game. I give him credit for that. But guess what? He'll be back and healthy and raring to go this week. So we have Sincere McCormick back in the lineup. He's already almost a 1,000-yard rusher. Frank Harris now, he started the year, and he looked good at the first couple of games. Sort of lost his job. Now he's back starting again. Last week he had 22 of 26 for 312 yards against Rice. Wow, that's a great game. So you got Frank Rice, you got McCormick. Meanwhile, here you got Trey Lowe, you got, I don't know what they got, a running back, and you've got a much better UTSA team with a defense that's playing great against a team that's down to an interim head coach of an interim head coach. UTSA still got something to play for. They're 5-4. They can have a winning season. Been a long time for that. Southern Miss, they got nothing to play for. And so I'm going to take UTSA. I'm going to lay the 8.5 on the road. And we're going to go, and by the way, UTSA minus 8.5 over Southern Miss. Lock it in as your fourth play this week of your 7 plays. Guaranteed to have a winning week. All right, let's take you out to Pac-12 country now. We're going to go to Oregon State and Cal. And this one's, Cal is on the road, so we're going to put them on the left. Oregon State's at home, so we're going to put them on the right. A couple things to point out in this game. If you look at Oregon State, they're 0-2. But they played Washington State tough in the opener. Only outgained by 5 yards. And last week against Washington, they lost by 6. But when you click on the box scores here on Phil Steele Plus, this is courtesy of collegepressbox.com. Collegepressbox.com is a great site, and they give you the complete game book for each game. This gives you how the scoring recap of the game, gives you the stats for the game, gives you the player stats for the game, and then what I love, and I do go through the play-by-play of every single game, you go through the play-by-play of every game on the thing. So what I want to show you, I'm going to take advantage and go all the way to the fourth quarter of this game. And when you go to the fourth quarter, you have Oregon State is trailing the game by 3 points. So Oregon State is trailing this game by 3 points. And was it the fourth quarter or was it the start of the third? Let me take a look up here. Right, Jefferson, 3 yards, 2nd and 4. Right here it is. Okay, so you're at the start of the fourth quarter. Oregon State's down by 3. Jefferson runs, and I watch this game naturally. Jefferson runs for no gain to the Washington 5. They're about to score a touchdown and take the lead. Somehow they spot the ball a little off. And you're like, no big deal to get it on fourth down. On fourth down, Jefferson runs about 1.5 yards past the yard marker. They spot it short. They review it. They call it stopped on downs. So they had gone 75 yards, 13 plays. They really got the first down, would have scored the touchdown, taken the lead. And as it was, they didn't take the lead, and they end up giving up a field goal here to Washington and lose the game by 6. So they played pretty well. I can't say the same for Cal. Now, Cal did only have 2 days to prepare for UCLA. They didn't even know they were on the schedule. But guess what? UCLA only had 2 days to prepare for Cal, for crying out loud. So they were in the same boat that Cal was coming into the game. And one thing I want to point out about Chase Garbers, the most quoted stat, and I even quoted it in the magazine, it's legitimate. Chase Garbers last year in games he started and finished was a perfect 7-0. Outstanding. All right, that is great. Now, is Chase Garbers Joe Montana? The answer is no. In fact, let's take a look at the games that Chase Garbers has started in the last 3 years and finished. It would be this UCLA game. They were minus 264 yards. Last year, throw away this UC Davis game. That's an FCS foe. Washington, minus 45 yards. North Texas, minus 51 yards. Mississippi, minus 92 yards. Then Garbers got injured. They lost these games. He returned down here at the bottom, Stanford. They were plus 73, plus 11 against UCLA, and minus 55 yards in the bowl game. The previous year, Garbers was a starter down the stretch here, minus 26, minus 107, minus 70, minus 122, minus 8. So in Garbers' last 14 starts, 13 have been against FBS teams. Cal's actually minus 56 yards per game. And in fact, they've been outgained in 10 of the 13 games. So it's not like Chase Garbers is throwing for 450 yards a game and Cal's lighting up opponents. They've been outgained 10 of the last 13 games. So I do want to bring that up. And then the last one would be, and granted, it's very small segment here. Cal's only had 1 game, Oregon State 2. But look at these average game grades. Cal's playing at a level of 74.7. Oregon State at 94.4, and Oregon State's a 3.5-point dog. Lock it in. It's your fifth play. Oregon State plus 3.5 over Cal. That's Oregon State plus 3.5 over California. And we'll wrap it up. I do have an FCS game, and it's one I do like this week. And we're going to take a look. And before I get to it, a couple quick notes. Your press box right now, we got a special deal going on. For press box, it's 18-10, 64% the last 5 weeks. If you want to get the single edition, it's $20. But if you want to get the college regular season, and the college regular season right now is going through December 19th. So we got 5 weeks left. 5 weeks of regular season college football. That's $100. It's $89 right now. NFL, there's even more than 5 weeks left, but it's $89. Postseason is $89. That's every bowl game, every playoff game. Phil Steele Plus is currently $49. Now, if you sign up for any of these packages here, use the code word football is back, take $20 off. So this will be $69, $69, $69. Then, if you purchase if you get my package, the full season package, you type in the code word elite member, you get $50 off. Right now it's $179, so your price would be $129. So you will get the college regular season, $89, NFL regular season, postseason. Phil Steele Plus is included. You get that included with your Inside the Press Box subscription. All that right now is currently $316, sold separately. You type in elite member, it's yours for $129. You get Inside the Press Box and Phil Steele Plus through the Super Bowl for $129. Just thought I'd throw that specials out to you. Elite member down here. Football is back here. Press Box is 18-10 last 5 weeks, college football. All right, now let's get to this BYU North Alabama game. I'm going to put BYU on the right. They're the home team. I'm going to put North Alabama on the left. And to do that, I'm going to go to my FCS team pages, and it's got all the teams. And once again, just like the FBS, you get complete access to all of it. Here's North Alabama. Now, North Alabama is not fair because they just joined the FCS 2 years ago. They were a Division II team here. You can tell by who they're playing, Azusa Pacific, Mississippi College. Here they joined the FCS, and they only won 4 games last year. And then so far this year, they've played 3 games. They've lost by 21, 7, and 11 points. They lost by 11 to that Southern Miss team we were talking about. Their offense is averaging 233 yards per game. Now, what these stats out here do, they show you how you do against your opponent averages. To give you an example, if this is a 90 out here, their defense, that means they held Boise to 90 yards below their season average. So they gave up 310 yards. That means in every game besides BYU, Boise's averaging 400 yards per game. They hold them to 310, which is 90 below. And on the flip side of the coin, they're plus 239. That means if you take that 239 into here, Boise State in every game besides BYU is allowing 334 yards per game. BYU got 573 yards on them, 239 above their season average. So they're plus 145, plus 90. As I showed you, they're number 2 on the yards per game thing. Meanwhile, North Alabama is 131 yards per game below what their opponents allow. So at 233 yards per game, 131 below. Now, if you take this number, 131 below, and type it into here, the 285, that means that North Alabama should gain 154 yards. Let's do the flip side. They hold them to 90 below. They're getting 233. That means that North Alabama should get 143 yards. Add the two together, North Alabama's going to gain 148 yards here. Let me show you what my computer has on this game. This is not an official press box play this week, but it is what my computer has on the game. By the way, one of those earlier games I gave you, of those first 5 games I gave you, one of them is an actual press box play. I'm not going to tell you which one, but one of them's a press box play. Last week I gave you 2 press box plays included in the Phil Steele Plus tour. Those press box plays went 1-0 and one game didn't get played. So they went 1-0 last week in the tour, and this week I've given you one of those plays up above is a press box play. But let's take a look here. My computer's got North Alabama with minus 70 yards. And we know they're not going to get minus 70 yards, but it pretty much says this game's going to be a shutout, minus 12 points. It says BYU's going to get 811 yards and 65 points. Okay, they'll call the dogs off in the fourth quarter, but I still got it 65-0. And BYU right now is minus 47.5. I will be surprised if North Alabama scores on that BYU defense. I'll also be surprised if BYU doesn't score in the 50s or 60s for this game. So even though it's a very high number, BYU needs to continue to impress folks like they've been doing all year. You see all these big blowouts all year. I'm going to take BYU minus 47.5 over North Alabama as our number 6 play. So I've given you 6 plays so far. I got one more for you, and it's going to come in the NFL. So let's take a look at the NFL team pages. One matchup I want to show to you this week. It's pretty interesting. You know, Kansas City's playing with revenge. Andy Reid's off a bye. If you like that game, here's something else to even help you even more. Kansas City's just dominated this series. Look at this green. This is here for the NFL, by the way. Here's your last 20 years matchups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They're 9-1 straight up the last 10. This is against Oakland or Las Vegas. But then it was Oakland when they played them. So they have pretty much dominated. They've won by 18-31. One game here, 7. But they won by 32. They won by 11. They won by 16. They won by 8, they won by 34, and they won by 6 in that game. So as you see, Kansas City is a team that is dominating the Raiders on a weekly basis. They're playing with revenge, and they are off a bye, which is always a good thing for them. So that's not the game we're looking at, though. I'm giving you a completely different game, and we're going to take a look at a matchup, and it is between, and let me put over here and here, Washington is on the right, and Cincinnati is on the left. And the reason I bring this match up, both teams have 2 wins this year, okay? Both. But one thing I do want to point out is the standings. Cincinnati plays in the same division as Cleveland at 6-3, Baltimore at 6-3, and Pittsburgh at 9-0. They're 0-4 in their division. Now, Cincinnati this year is 6-2-1 against the spread. Which games have they not covered? Only 2. At Pittsburgh, one of the best teams in the NFL on the road, at Baltimore, one of the best teams in the NFL on the road. They've covered at Cincinnati already. They tied Philadelphia on the road. So this is a Cincinnati team that has played. They're 0-4 versus this division. Outside the division, they're 2-2-1. All right, let's take a look at Washington. Washington plays in the same division as 2-7, 3-7, 3-5-1. Now, both their wins have come against this division. As you can tell, they beat the Dallas Cowboys and they beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Outside the division, the Washington Redskins are 0-5, haven't won a game all season. I bring that up because the Washington Redskins are favored in this game, and I think Cincinnati is a good team that just happens to play in one of the toughest divisions in football. Meanwhile, Washington is a bad team from one of the worst divisions in football. And if you go back to last week's game against Detroit, once again, here we also show you the boxes on the games. This is courtesy of NFL.com. They give you these great game books. This game was 24-3, Detroit. Then they mounted the comeback in the game Washington did. But overall, you're looking at a bad team from a bad division versus a Cincinnati team who's only, is 2-2-1 outside their division. I'm going to go with the underdog here. I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals plus 1.5 over Washington as your play. So I hope I've showed you enough about the NFL. The NFL, by the way, you can go back 2009, 8, 7, all the way back. It's got it on every single team just like that. You get individual player stats in the NFL just like you do. So you could tell if, Joe Burrow's best games, worst games. He threw for 313 against there, 406 against Cleveland. That's pretty impressive. Joe Mixon hasn't played the last 3 games. You could tell that at a glance. All that at your fingertips in the NFL. We showed you the FCS, showed you the FBS. Guaranteed winning week. I gave you 7 plays this week. If we don't have a winning week, you get my college plays at $20 value, absolutely free. And don't forget, if you do want to sign up for PressBox, use these code words. Football is back, gets you $20 off. Elite member gets you the other one back. Let's have a winning week for Phil Steele Plus. 2-2 for the colleges last week. A disappointing 0-2-1 or 0-3 in the NFL. But let's get Phil Steele Plus rolling this week with a guaranteed winning week. And I'll be back with you next week. Thanks for watching.